Today on The Edge, I'm sitting with entrepreneur Tony Bahu, founder and CEO of Yonutz. Yonutz has been featured on CNN, is partnered with Kevin Harrington, the original shark from Shark Tank, and his flagship store in Fort Lauderdale was also voted the best dessert shop in South Florida. Welcome, Tony. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
So if you could tell me a little bit about Yonutz and what got you started on it, that would be a great start for us.
Yeah, so Yonutz is a really fun, fantastical dessert shop. And we have donuts, we have ice cream, but the magic is what we do with them. We put them together and create some really awesome desserts, and so it's a really fun dessert shop.
Wow, you brought some today, and I can't wait to try them later. They really look as fantastic as they sound. What makes you different from the rest of the competitors that you have? I mean, South Florida is a big market, and there's tons of dessert shops and ice cream. What makes you stand out?
When we first started the Yonutz concept, one of the things that was asked to me actually was, you know, how are you going to differentiate yourself? And how are you going to compete with all these donut and ice cream shops? And I said, we're not. I said, we're going to really just do something that hasn't been done. And so we created the smash donut. So we take a donut, cut it in half, fill it with ice cream, hot press it, put a bunch of toppings on it, and that was kind of it. And that was what really got Yonutz going.
Wow, and it's history from there. So
yes.
How many Yonutz shops are there right now?
So we have the one in Fort Lauderdale. We also have one in Vegas, but we have a whole bunch coming up.
So that's super exciting. I'm hearing a little bit about franchising, and we have tons of clients and contacts, and lots of people are interested in franchising. And what is like one piece of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs who are maybe considering franchising their business?
Yeah, I think franchising is a great way to grow your brand, your business. I think the best advice I would give to somebody is team up with somebody that has the experience, because that makes all the difference. I know a lot of people say we want to franchise. There's a lot to it, even more than I ever thought. I thought, hey, we're ready to franchise, but you know, there's a lot of surprises along the way, and so the experienced people who have the experience, of course, such as your company or whoever, can really lend a hand in that.
Right. Obviously, besides, you know, an accounting firm, what do you think another important strategic hire would be? Like, what was your first strategic hire?
For me, it's all about marketing. I think, you know, running the business part can be figured out. Marketing, the branding is probably the most critical. And in fact, one of our first probably key hires at Yonutz was the person who initially started helping with our marketing. Today, it's social media, it's marketing. Is how do you make yourself appear awesome in the marketing on the social media standpoint? So to me, it boiled down to finding somebody who could help us with that. And I think that was probably the first strategic hire for us.
Wow, that's great. So again, we have a ton of clients that are early stage entrepreneurs. And you know, I think the hardest thing for most business owners in the beginning is funding. And so how did you raise your initial funding to start Yonutz?
Oh, that's a pain point right there. With Yonutz, one of the hardest parts for us was that we knew we believed in it, but it was expensive. So we just kept self-funding, and it got to the point where we were like, wow, you know, we're digging deep, and so this better work.
Right.
So for us, it was really a matter of self-funding initially, and again, it took a lot of belief in ourselves to be able to do that and pull it off.
So knowing what you know now about Yonutz and where you are today, is there anything that you would have changed, maybe you know, a risk you took that now that you've learned a bit, that you maybe wouldn't have taken?
I don't know if there's a risk I wouldn't have taken. I think, you know, I think if I could go back, there are times, I mean, I think every entrepreneur goes through this. There are times where, you know, a little bit of self-doubt creeps in, a little bit of fear creeps in, and I think that's natural. And so again, as much as we believed in ourselves, there were those days I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh my God, are we really doing this? Is this really happening? Should we keep going? Yeah, the risks were there, and you know, we took the risks, but I think it's really that.
Yeah,
Just being able
and
to
with risks come rewards, so
sure,
that's
sure.
awesome. So when you franchise, what differentiates you from the rest? What sets you apart from everybody else?
Yeah, I love that question. So when we're franchising, when we decided to franchise, we knew that we had to have a product that was different, that was fun, that was kind of our own. The other thing too that I believe sets us apart is we consider Yonutz an experience. It's not just walk in and buy an ice cream, buy a donut. It's like, you know what, how can we make this an experience for our guests, for our visitors, for our customers? where they're not just coming in to buy and a transaction. They come in and it's a full sensory experience, from tasting to smelling to seeing to listening to. So I think that's for us what it was.
Right, and it's interesting because when you go in there, I see a whole bunch of people taking pictures and posting on social media. The milkshakes you have look insane with the donuts on top.
Yes.
So how do you define success? I mean, is it going to be by the number of franchisees? Is it the customer experience?
To me, one of the markers of success is how much success we can create. I think that's really important, and that anybody who works with me will tell you I'm very, very particular about making sure that everything we do is good for our franchisees. So that I think is one marker. And the other thing is absolutely customer experience. Our number one commitment is that the customer's experience is the best 2 to 10 minutes of their day. And I think that's really important because a lot of times, you know, as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, we focus on ourselves, or what's going to make us successful. But by creating that for a customer or that for a franchisee, I think that's what ultimately will make us successful.
Wow, that's great. So if you had one single piece of advice for an entrepreneur in an early stage company that you could give them, that you think would put them over the edge, what single piece of advice would that be?
Oh, mindset, mindset, mindset. I had one of my employees walk in one day and he said, you know, Tony, I was just listening to this podcast and this entrepreneur was on, and he said, you know, when I started my business, there were all sorts of elements of doubt that creeped in, and I wondered why the heck I started the business I did. And he asked me, he said, you know what, Tony, has that ever happened to you? And I paused for a moment, and I was like, you know what? I said, it has literally happened to me in every single business I've owned. There's always been that element of doubt, but I think what got me through was the mindset, the motivation, the things, you know, it's really surrounding yourself with the words you need to hear. And there's a lot of tools for that, whether it's, you know, motivational speakers to listen to, things to read, but I think that would definitely 100% be it.
Right, and I know you also are very involved in mentoring and being a leader, and you have something called Inspire That Fire, so
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Inspire That Fire, what it is, it's just really an encouragement to people who are in business. One day I was talking to one of my friends, and you know, he's a great marketer, and he said to me, you know, he said, you should speak to people about owning a business and how to succeed in a small business. He said, the things you know, you think are second nature, he goes, but the reality is they're second nature to you, but not to everybody else.
Right.
So you should speak to people about that. And what's been awesome is I've been able to speak and create, I have a really cool, you know, flagship program called What It Takes, the 7 things it takes to succeed in business. And so that's what Inspire That Fire is. It's just really to get people motivated and to get them encouraged, because it's hard in a world that's knocking everyone down to get, you know, somebody motivated and encouraged enough to do their own thing.
So did you have a mentor throughout, you know, this process of starting a business, and who have you looked up to over the years?
Yeah, so number one was definitely my father. I mean, I remember one of the first things he ever said to me was, you can't soar like an eagle when you're flying with chickens. And when he said it, I was like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. So that's one thing. And then of course I've listened to all the great speakers, and when I was having those elements of doubt, I kept hearing the words of my mentors and the motivational speakers that I'd heard about not giving up.
Right, it's so important. You know, entrepreneurs, they need advisors and they need people to be able to turn to who have been through experiences like yours, or else it's, you know, set you up for failure. So
there was a day where I wanted to go to this conference. It was like an entrepreneur conference, and I got up and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go. Got in my car, got out of my car. I said, I'm not going to this thing. Got into my car, got out of my car, said, I'm not going to this thing. So then finally I got into my car. I said, you know what, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna see what happens. So I ended up going to this conference, and I said, you know, who's the one person I need to meet here? So I just kept saying, who's the one person I need to meet? Right. I met this guy. He ended up inviting me to his conference, and there I met a gentleman, and I ended up hiring this guy to write the presentation for our franchise at the time. Well, this guy shows up a few days later to my store, starts writing this presentation, and he walks out on the phone with somebody saying, you guys have to check this concept out. It's incredible. It's fun. We could franchise this thing. Little did I know he was speaking to Kevin Harrington, the original shark from Shark Tank. Wow. And like a couple of days later, I'm in a negotiation with the Shark Tank people and with his team. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, and again, I look back, I said, you know, if I didn't show up, right, it never would have happened. So it was just, I tell everyone, I say, you got to show up in life.
Yeah, that's great advice. So we have a ton of early stage companies that we service at EisnerAmper, and a lot of them are always wondering, what is it that they need to do in order to scale their business?
Scaling is interesting because there are so many things that even when we were starting out, my one question I kept asking myself is, can this be done in Florida and in the other half of the country? And to me, supply chain was a big deal, huge deal, because you have to create the same experience East Coast, West Coast. So I think to me, supply chain and looking at the things and can you really duplicate the product, the experience? So I think that to me was probably one of the biggest things we looked at.
And what do you think the most important takeaway is for someone who wants to franchise their business?
Buckle your seatbelt. It's it's a ride. It's a ride, and it's not. A lot of people I think see this thing franchising as, oh, it's the ticket, but it's like anything in life that is worth it. It's a lot of work. It's not about just your business anymore. It's really about how to take your business, scale it, but allow other people to succeed with your system. So it has to be a system, it has to be a process, and it has to be teachable and scalable.
How did you know that you had a franchisable business?
Well, we're in Florida, and what's fun about Florida is we have people coming from all over the place, from all over the country, and people would come in and they'd be from Arizona, from California, from Texas. Oh my God, this is so good, it's amazing, we heard about it. They'd have their first bite, they'd go crazy over it, and they would say, oh, I wish I had this in wherever they were from. Right. And so that was really neat, and they wanted to take it back, and they kept asking, when are you gonna open here, when are you open there? So I think that was really cool. It was a kind of cool indicator for yeah, we need to be in other places.
Wow, yeah, so it kind of happened naturally.
Yeah.
So at EisnerAmper, we work with early stage companies, and we're their advisors, and we're in the trenches with them. We take them through their life cycle from early startups to successful companies, and we're always there mentoring and being an advisor to them. So how important is mentorship to you and to Yonutz?
Mentorship is everything. I think in business, there's things you know, there's things you don't know. But I think where mentorship is the most important is, it's where there's things you don't know, but there's also things you don't know. And I think those make all the difference, because those are like those aha moments where somebody says something to you, something you never thought of, maybe never would have thought of. So I think mentors can provide that. Why? Because they have the experience, they have the wisdom. Right. And one of my favorite phrases ever is, when a man with money meets a man with experience, the man with the money ends up with the experience, and the man with the experience ends up with the money. And so I think wisdom and mentorship is critical. It's awesome. It's great to have.
That's beautiful. Tony, thank you. That was awesome. And now I'm ready for the delicious part of this and the fun part. So can we bring on the donuts?
All right.
Wow, look at these. So tell me a little bit about these delicious, colorful donuts we have here. What do you have here?
Awesome. Those are our big donuts. That one is unicorn, cookies and cream, dulce de leche, birthday party, fruity pebble donut.
Wow.
And a personal favorite is Oreo party.
Wow. So
these are our mini donuts, and these are fun when you have a bigger group and you want to have like small samples. And we have, I think, 24 different flavors of the mini donuts. They're pretty fancy actually for being so little.
So tell me a little bit about this smashed donut and the experience that I'd have when I'd come to Yonutz.
Yeah, so that, like you said, is a smashed donut. So we take a donut, we cut it in half, put a scoop of ice cream in it, we hot press it, then we put a bunch of toppings on it, and that is the awesome, ultimate experience of donuts and ice cream right there.
Wow, this is perfection. And which one do you have?
This is my personal favorite. It's French toast. So it has the maple, it has the cinnamon toast crunch, some sprinkles on it, and it's fantastic.
Tony, thank you so much for joining us on EisnerAmper's Entrepreneur Edge. It's been such a wonderful conversation.
Yes, thank you.
And for you, thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to sharing future entrepreneur success stories with you. Let's dig in. Cheers. Wow. This is good.